Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into a massive milestone for Bangladesh. Now, on paper, graduating from the UN's least developed countries list, the LDC list, sounds like a reason to throw a huge national party, right? It's a massive badge of honor. It genuinely validates decades of hard-fought economic resilience. But when we actually dig into our source material and listen to top industry leaders and economists, we uncover a much more complicated reality beneath that success. For Bangladesh's economy, this graduation isn't just a shiny new badge of progress. It actually represents a looming and highly complex cliff.
So here's the massive paradox we're looking at today. Is it a badge of honor or an economic trap? On one hand, hitting those UN metrics is absolutely a testament to years of incredible growth, but ironically, it's also setting off alarm bells across the entire private sector. Why? Because the very safety nets, protections, and trade privileges that allowed Bangladesh to grow so rapidly in the first place, well, they're about to be completely stripped away.
All right, let's run through our agenda real quick. First, we'll unpack this graduation paradox, then see exactly how Bangladesh actually aced the UN's tests. After that, we're diving into two massive incoming shocks, the trade preference cliff and the intellectual property shock. Then we'll take a hard look at the reality of the country's readiness before wrapping up with the exact strategies needed for a smooth transition. Let's get into it.
Starting off with Section 1, the LDC graduation paradox. To really grasp the business community's anxiety right now, we have to look at the dual nature of leaving this classification. Our sources use this absolutely brilliant metaphor that anyone who follows cricket will instantly get. Basically, entering this new post-LDC economic reality unprepared is exactly like a cricket team being forced to bat on a completely ruined, dangerous pitch right as a massive Kalbashaki storm rolls in. I mean, the conditions are just brutal. The ball is swinging wildly, and if your technique and prep aren't absolutely flawless, you're getting bowled out instantly. The business community literally feels like they're being sent out to bat without the right gear. But if conditions are so incredibly tough, how did Bangladesh even get here? Let's check the numbers. Section 2. How Bangladesh passed the tests. What's genuinely staggering here is just how much Bangladesh crushed these metrics. The UN looks at three core things. First, gross national income per capita. The passing score was $1,300. Bangladesh absolutely smashed it, doubling the requirement by pulling in over $2,600. Next, the human asset index. They needed a 66 and scored a 77.5. And finally, the economic vulnerability index, where, by the way, a lower score is actually what you want. The threshold was 32, and Bangladesh safely secured a 22.5. So yeah, the country didn't just scrape by. It massively overachieved on every single test.
Okay, let's map this timeline out. Bangladesh was first labeled an LDC way back in 1975. Fast forward to 2024, and the UN officially confirms this massive overachievement. Officially, the scheduled graduation day is November 2026. But because of the massive economic turbulence we're about to talk about, both the government and the private sector are pushing really hard to secure a deferral. They are targeting 2029, basically just desperately trying to buy a little more time to get ready. And honestly, they need every second they can get because of what's waiting for them. Section 3. The trade preference cliff. This is literally the biggest imminent threat to the country's export market.
Right. So this is where things get genuinely a bit scary for exporters. Right now, as an LDC, Bangladesh gets what's called EBA status, everything but arms, in the European Union. That means 0% duty on exports. It gives them an incredible competitive advantage. But the literal day they graduate, that completely vanishes. Suddenly they could be looking at duties jumping up to 12 or even 24%. Plus they'll be hit with strict double hopping rules. This means if they want any trade benefits at all, they'll have to manufacture their own fabrics locally instead of just importing them. And while this is happening, competitors like Vietnam have been out there proactively signing free trade agreements, dropping their own duties to zero. Bangladesh is kind of moving in the exact opposite direction.
And just to put into perspective why this matters so much, 82%. Guys, literally 82% of the country's export earnings come from just one single sector, ready-made garments, or RMG. When your entire economy rests heavily on one single pillar, a sudden 12 to 24% price hike in your biggest market isn't just a bump in the road. It's a profound existential threat to the nation's entire macroeconomic stability.
But hey, the impact goes way beyond global trade. Section 4. The pharma and IP shock. This is a shockwave that is going to hit the wallet of every single citizen inside the country.
Okay, so what on earth is a TRIPS exemption? Simply put, it's a World Trade Organization waiver that lets LDCs bypass strict international intellectual property and patent enforcement. For Bangladesh, this waiver has been the ultimate golden ticket. It's the sole reason the country can currently produce 95 to 99% of its own pharmaceutical needs locally and cheaply. They were originally supposed to keep this perk until 2033, but graduating means they lose it almost immediately. The domino effect of losing this is severe. Without the waiver, global intellectual property patents are suddenly strictly enforced. That means local production of new generic medicines basically hits a legal brick wall. But actually, it goes beyond pharma. Regular, everyday businesses will suddenly have to pay mandatory licensing fees for software they used to get for cheap or in a gray market. Our sources pointed out that for a mid-sized company, just getting basic software compliance could suddenly hike their operating costs by 20 to 25 lakh taka. And what does this mean for the average person on the street? The sources gave a really stark, chilling example. Think about Napa, the standard go-to brand for paracetamol in Bangladesh. Once those patent protections and royalties fully kick in, a simple pack of Napa could easily cost up to 3 times as much. That's exactly how a high-level macroeconomic policy directly impacts the daily cost of living.
Which brings us to the absolute crux of the issue. Section 5, the reality of our readiness. Sure, the UN says the numbers look phenomenal on paper, but what is the actual situation on the ground?
One of our sources perfectly captured the mood with this quote, calling Bangladesh a black swan LDC. It's completely unique. I mean, no other LDC has 95% local farmer production or is the world's top denim producer. They have the mathematical metrics, sure, but underneath the surface, when you look at infrastructure, governance, and actual skill levels, the private sector feels they are entirely unprepared to compete without those protective training wheels. Let's look at the specific gaps. Right off the bat, logistics costs are sitting between 12 and 17%. That is nearly double the global average. You simply cannot compete globally without overhead. Then there's this massive education paradox. You've got millions of people graduating with BBAs and MBAs who can't find a job, but at the exact same time, industries are suffering a critical shortage of lab technicians and industrial engineers. It's crazy. Businesses are literally forced to hire foreign technical talent because deep-rooted social stigmas against vocational training make it incredibly difficult to fix the local talent pipeline. So, how does Bangladesh survive this? Giving up obviously isn't an option. Section 6, Strategies for Smooth Transition. Let's look at the survival guide.
The survival blueprint laid out by our sources has 3 clear steps. Number 1, economic diplomacy. Bangladesh absolutely must urgently deploy highly capable negotiators to lock down free trade agreements, just like India and Vietnam are doing. Number 2, upskilling. We have to build an immediate bridge between what universities teach and what industries actually need, which means aggressively crushing the stigma around technical work. And number 3, product diversification. Relying on garment exports for 82% of your revenue is a ticking time bomb. They've got to pivot into new, high-value manufacturing sectors.
And this right here brilliantly illustrates the required shift in business mindset. Historically, Bangladesh has largely functioned as an OEM, an original equipment manufacturer, meaning a big brand sends over a design, Bangladesh sews it together cheaply and ships it back. But to survive the higher costs of a post-LDC world, they have to evolve into ODM, original design manufacturing. They need to create the designs themselves, own the intellectual property, and eventually build their own global brands. Just being the absolute cheapest source of labor, that's a business model with a hard expiration date.
Throughout its history, whether it's recovering from devastating natural disasters or building a massive global garment empire, the private sector of Bangladesh has proven time and time again to be incredibly resilient. But as the sources pointed out, businesses don't want to play Sisyphus anymore. Constantly pushing a heavy rock up a hill only to watch poor policies knock it right back down. They definitely have the resilience, but as the clock ticks down to graduation day, the ultimate question remains, do they have the cohesive, national strategy needed to survive the cliff? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the data and keep learning.